info briefing of the Committee on Ways and Means and Labor, Culture, and the Arts to order. Today we'll hear from two different agencies, Department of Human Resources Development and Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, who will present their biennium budgets. So first up is DHERD. Good afternoon.
Sorry about that, I apologize. I thought the LIR was going first. Let me start off. Honorable Chair Dela Cruz, Chair Taniguchi, members of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means, and members of the Senate Committee on Labor, Culture, and the Arts. My name is Roy Kawada. I'm the Director for the Department of Human Resources Development. I'm here today to present the Department's budget request for fiscal biennium 21 through 23. Before I begin with DHERD's testimony regarding the biennium budget, I would like to respectfully inform the committee that I will be unable to answer any questions related to collective bargaining or possible furloughs. Both are highly confidential matters, and there's currently litigation pending. I remind the committees that the governor has announced that possible furloughs have been deferred for the time being. With that said, the mission statement. The department's mission is to attract and maintain a qualified and high-performing workforce within applicable fiscal and operational constraints. This includes recruitment, activities for civil service positions, providing support for personnel actions that are necessary as a result of the state's fiscal status, classifying positions based on the duties and responsibilities, identifying and coordinating employee training and development opportunities, compensating employees at proper pay levels, assuring effective employee-employer relations, administering a variety of voluntary employee benefits, administering the state's self-insured workers' compensation program for state employees, and ensuring a safe and healthy work environment. Per the committee's request, our staffing, I'm going to describe our staffing patterns for DHERD. DHERD is composed of 8 groups. The first is the director's office, composed of the director, the deputy director, and 2 private secretaries. And also the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, responsible for ensuring compliance with all federal and state non-discrimination laws. This group develops and oversees policy and investigates issues related to EEO and provides guidance relating to recruitment and personnel practices. We also provide guidance related to reasonable accommodations. Currently, that staffing pattern consists of 1 EEO administrator and 1 EEO personnel program officer. The second group is our Administrative Services Office, our ASO along with a secretary, HR specialist, and account clerk. All administrative functions of the entire department, as well as administering the unemployment insurance benefits for the executive branch, excluding the DOE and the University of Hawaii, the judiciary, and the legislature. The third group is our IT office. We have 1 IT manager, and that person is responsible for supporting the entire infrastructure for DHERD. Our employee claims division has 1 division chief, which is currently vacant, 3 branch managers in workers' compensation, return to work, and safety. Workers' comp is responsible for planning and administering the state's self-insured workers' comp program for the executive branch, the charter schools, HPHA, and the legislature. We manage all executive branch workers' compensation claims, which is a statutorily mandated benefit. We also, in that group, have 16 claims management and cost containment positions and 4 vacant positions. Our return to work branch is responsible for returning injured workers back to gainful employment and resolving workers' comp disputes that address medical treatment in order to help employees reach maximum medical improvement. In that branch, we have 1 branch chief and 1 vacant HR specialist position. In our safety branch, they are responsible for administration of safe and healthy workplace laws, rules, and regulations. They oversee and provide guidance in the areas of state and federal mandates, training and identifying hazardous conditions, training for safe and healthy workplace, including workplace violence, drug and alcohol testing, worksite safety inspections, and ergonomic assessments. In that branch, we have 1 branch chief and 1 HR specialist. The 5th group is our employee staffing division, and they are responsible for the statewide recruitment of civil service positions and the maintenance of the merit system. They are responsible for competitive recruitments, competitive exams, exam development, jurisdictional placement searches for those who are affected by reductions in force, And they are also currently responsible for our WikiWiki project, as well as statewide onboarding for certain departments. Our ESD is composed of one division chief, which is currently vacant, and a secretary. We have 14 staff, 2 of which are vacant in our recruitment division. We have 5 staff, 1 of which is vacant in our certification division, and 5 staff, 1 of which is vacant in our examination division. Senior staffing, which is what you might know as Act 57, has 2 staff, with both of which are vacant. Labor relations is responsible for our 6th group is labor relations, which is responsible for the maintenance of labor relations, oversight and guidance to all executive branch departments, and they're responsible for collective bargaining for the entire executive branch. They administer and enforce the state's labor management agreements and performance appraisal system. Currently, that group has 1 division chief and 7 staff members. The 7th group is our employee relations division, which develops, implements, and administers statewide no-cost/low-cost employee benefit and training and development programs. There's 1 division chief there. In our personnel transactions office branch, they process, audit, and advise on various pay and personnel transactions for all employees. They develop and implement processing requirements to effect new employee actions and generate workforce reports, some of which come to the legislature. Our PTO has 6 positions, 3 of which are currently vacant. Training branch is responsible for the professional development and training for the entire branch. Enterprise-wide, we have our learning management system thanks to the legislature, which is, again, enterprise-wide and available for all state employees. They also focus on professional development for current employees. And right now, one of our highlights during the pandemic is the rollout of our leadership program, which has 3 different levels, identifying new leaders, experienced leaders, and our Navigator program, which will be rolling out later this year. Navigator program will be rolling out later this year. In our training branch, we have 5 positions, 2 of which are currently vacant. In our employee assistance benefits branch, they are responsible for the administration and implementation of statewide pre-tax employment benefit programs, such as deferred comp, flexible spending, and premium conversion plan, all of which has provided a $9.8 million savings to the state this past fiscal year. They are also responsible for the REACH contract, which is a support program for all state executive branch employees. They're responsible for service awards as well as the Affordable Care Act Police Program. Our EAO has 4 positions. Our classification and compensation division, in classification, they're responsible for developing and administering position and class systems for civil service positions. They provide service to all line departments, including establishing new classes, amending classes, reviewing bargaining unit exclusions, and reviewing civil service exemptions. In classification, there are 10 positions, 4 of which are vacant. And there is 1 position there that is also currently assisting personnel transactions. Our compensation branch develops and maintains a civil service compensation system for the executive branch, providing service to all line departments in the areas of compensation, pay programs, and support for collective bargaining. And then lastly, we do have our administrative assistant per Act 57. One of the things that the committees have asked for is our major lessons learned from this pandemic. And to just sum it up in a sentence, the executive branch is flexible, but we need to be more flexible. As you know, the response to the surge in unemployment claims has truly tested the limits of the executive branch in being able to respond to a crisis. However, with a lot of hard work and real partnership between a lot of different people in the executive branch, as well as the legislature and across the state, we were able to respond to the crisis. I note that it may be impossible to prepare a contingency plan for a crisis that may happen only every 100 years, but we do need to continue to prepare for as many contingencies as we can entertain, as we can envision, Another example of the flexibility displayed by the executive branch was the use of telework. In a survey DHER did to gather information on telework, we found that our remote work program, while it's been in existence since 2010, it was used by less than 5% of the executive branch prior to the pandemic. However, because of the pandemic and the need to social distance and keep employees safe and healthy, that percentage exceeded 75% during the pandemic, according to respondents. Further, our survey results overwhelmingly determined that the employees who responded support telework. Similarly, the supervisors who responded, by a large majority, were likely to offer telework opportunities in the future. Telework can and should be continued to be developed as a valuable tool for the executive branch workforce in the future. Impact of current statewide conditions. The coronavirus pandemic has significantly changed the landscape of the workforce and DHER. As a central personnel agency for the state executive branch, we've been working with the line departments to help them navigate the changes to ensure employee safety, health, wellness, and productivity. The issues that we have been addressing include remote work environment, preventative measures to limit the spread of illness in the workplace, leave policies, and the FFCRA, the Family's First Coronavirus Response, employee benefits, and financial relief measures, accommodation and compliance implications for COVID-19, and enhanced opportunities for employees working remotely to access on-demand learning, as well as attend virtual training sessions. The department has no programs that receive federal funds. The reports on the department's non-general funds pursuant to HRS 37-45 can be found at the web link that we've provided in our testimony. Regarding this fiscal biennium, the department has two significant budget requests for the fiscal biennium 21 through 23. Number one, for HRD 102, we're requesting an addition of $307,775 in fiscal year 2022 and $635,350 in fiscal year 2023 to address the increasing workers' compensation claims costs. Workers' compensation is a statutorily mandated benefit with penalties and fees assessed to employers who do not timely pay their obligations. Our second request is also for HRD 102, an addition of $275,000 in fiscal year 2022 to pay for the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations for the increase in unemployment insurance benefits attributed to former state employees for all executive branch departments, excluding the Department of Education and the University of Hawaii, the Judiciary, and the Legislature as well. The requested amount is based on UI benefit costs that were not covered by the reimbursements from the CARES Act. Departmental programs were asked to be prudent and focus on their fiscal planning. Requests for additional resources were limited to fixed costs and entitlement expenses. We are aware of the challenges ahead and remain committed to work with the legislature to seek solutions that effectively balance short and long-term priorities. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have. And I'm sorry, I did have a faux pas. I did not introduce our staff who's on the call today, also able to answer any questions. Our Division Chief for Labor Relations, Allison Morakawa, our EEO Officer, Amanda Davis, our Division Chief, our Administrative Services Officer, Marianne Tashima. We have our Division Chief for Employee Staffing is Deb Nishiyama. Our Administrative Assistant, Erin Connor. We have our Acting Division Chief for Employee Claims, Jennifer Morikilby, and our Acting Division Chief for Employee Staffing, Patty Miyamoto Osato. And lastly, we have our Deputy Director, Andrew Garrett, on the call. But again, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
So, Riker, is DHER currently reporting all their non-general funds to the legislature? Because the previous audits showed that they did not.
I'm sorry, Chair. I don't know which non-general. The only, I think we have two non-general fund accounts. One is for deferred comp, our EAO group. Marianne, could you jump on and let us know if there's anything else or something that you're familiar with?
We were reporting, in the past, we were reporting just the DHER Special Fund, which is the S310 account. And the ones that we weren't reporting, that we are reporting now, are the ones for the deferred compensation accounts.
Okay, so all of them are now being reported.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then, Riker, I wanted to find out, what are the plans to expand WikiWiki? And what's the timeline?
Currently, right now, we actually, we did report that to the legislature in our Act 57 report. Actually, I'm going to have Erin speak to that because she elaborated on that in our Act 57 report.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Good afternoon.
Okay. Hi. So, the WikiWiki expansion, several departments were interested in expanding this type of hiring for their personnel and their vacancies. Yes.
No, Senator Noy was just reflecting how much she misses you.
I miss you too, Senator. Sorry.
I do.
Okay, sorry. Can you repeat your answer?
I will continue, yes. So, several departments were interested in continuing to, or expanding to include hiring for WikiWiki. However, with a lot of the budget restrictions and the requirements and the hiring freeze, that departments no longer had the funds to be able to recruit for these positions. So in the Act 57 report, there is a table that shows you which departments are using WikiWiki and for which classes of work. Yes.
I think I'm more concerned.
Specifically.
Yeah, I think I'm more concerned about the special funded position. So, for instance, DOT. Because.
Yeah, so DOT is going to, or wants to start including their land surveyors and their land boundary surveyors and their equipment operators under WikiWiki. I believe DHERD will be doing training in the new year for DOT staff to get those positions hired through the WikiWiki process.
Okay, so my understanding is that some departments, like DOT, they actually have offered some staff to help assist expedite WikiWiki.
Yes, that's correct, Chair. DOT Highways has been very generous in offering us staff to be able to assist with our program here. I did talk with Deputy Director Ed Sniffen about it, and we are trying to continue to work out how we might be able to get those staff over here. Currently, DHERD doesn't have mechanism to accept funding, even through like a JV or something for federal funding or that other type of special funding, depending on how DOT wants to do that. And so we're trying to explore other ways that we might be able to get the staff over here while still being funded by DOT.
Okay, so how long is that going to take?
We would have to work with Budget and Finance and DAGs to see what the logistics of that would be. So I'm not sure. I can talk with them and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Okay, I would just think the sooner the better. I mean, especially if it's special funded positions.
Sure, definitely, Chair, agreed.
I wanted to talk about your table 2 from your testimony. So the additions in fiscal year 22 and 23 seem to be higher than your reductions.
That's correct, Chair. And that was the workers' comp that I was speaking about earlier.
Okay, so that extra money is all going to pay for workers' comp.
Yes, it's a projected increase for workers' comp, as well as a increase in the state share of unemployment insurance that we have to pay. DHERD is responsible for paying the state share of Y, and so that's where that money is. That's the addition we're looking for as well.
Okay.
I have a question when you're free.
And then on page or table 11, the first 2 lines, there's no expected fill dates for those two positions. So are they cut already, or?
I'm sorry, on table 11, sir?
Yeah, table 11, the vacancy report.
Marianne, could you help me out there?
The reason why there's a number of positions that don't have dates are because those are the positions that are unfunded that we are giving up in the biennium budget.
Okay, so you guys are keeping the positions but giving back the money.
The
No,
money has
No.
already been taken.
opposite.
They're giving
the
back the
monies were
positions.
taken last
They're keeping
year.
the positions though.
We
Wait.
gave back the position count, but then those are unfunded positions, so there's no money that comes back with the position count.
So why even put it on the list? I mean, if it doesn't exist anymore, you just get rid of it.
No, but they gotta officially take it off.
No, or we can just remove them.
Yeah. But I think we gotta do it through the budget.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Okay, so those are positions that we can scoop then.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just clarifying. And then the overtime expenses, can you guys explain that? The last two lines on table 13.
So the first four are were overtime costs associated with workforce attraction. Typically, what that means is, for instance, when we had in the past fiscal year job fairs where staff was working more time to either set up or work the job fairs. Additionally, what we're also doing is we're assisting with examinations, civil service examinations for certain populations. So that's what that group is for. I believe the last part, the last line, the 191, and Marianne, please correct me if I'm correct, but I believe that's for labor relations staff during arbitrations when our arbitrations were going much longer than 8 hours a day or into the weekends.
Okay. Senator Inouye?
Yes, Riker, are you folks planning on increasing the unemployment insurance? Are you going to move from your Schedule C to Schedule H that,
But he says they contribute for the state portion, right?
my understanding is the business community is concerned because it would be the highest tax schedule raise.
No, okay. So
So,
he only puts in insurance for state employees.
oh,
That's his
yeah.
portion of putting it in. The rest, so we gotta ask.
So we
Department of
gotta ask
and that's
labor
what-
then.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No.
Sorry.
No problem.
But at least
Sure.
I can burn your ear though. The business community are not happy. Okay.
Senator Marwaki?
Hi, Riker. Happy New Year.
Lost, correct. Happy New Year.
Hi. Looking at Table 5 and all of your reductions, you have it in like a total of 14 positions, and some of them you say are significant impact. What are these all vacant positions, and that's why you're eliminating, or are you being strategic about what you're eliminating?
These are currently the vacant positions.
So you just
What we're
eliminate
doing-
all these vacant, even if they have significant impact, because you can't hire.
Correct.
Is that what it is?
I hesitate to say that we can't hire. This was part of our strategic plan just to be able to scale forward. As you know, DHERC has continued to take significant personnel losses. And what we're trying to do is survive with what we have. It's really just to scale forward. I've been pretty happy, and without sounding parental, very proud about how DHERC has handled being short-staffed. We've been very innovative, and we've relied on each other internally, as well as our partners in the department, in the line departments. And so really what this is this is just us to contribute to the budgetary shortfall while still attempting to stay afloat with the type of work that we do.
Yeah, I know you have good staff, and I know that before COVID, we were talking about modernization and streamlining and delegating and all of the working with the departments so that in fact, even if you had a leaner office at Adhered, that you would be training and working with the departments so that they could be making a lot of decisions at the front line faster than, having to go through a lot of red tape. So I just want to make sure that in the process of what you're looking at strategically, that you're using technology, you're using your staff to do a lot more oversight and assistance rather than doing the heavy lifting. I'm just wondering what you're doing in that regard.
Sure, Senator. And you know what, I'm in 100% agreement with you. I think all of the things you talked about in terms of working with the line department as well as using technology, we really are focusing on right now. I think there are there's a lot of examples, but there are two big examples. The first is we have rolled out an updated learning management system through our training branch. So aside from the leadership courses where we're really targeting people we have and targeting professional development for our high-performing employees, the learning management system also covers the entire executive branch. And so people have the opportunity to do professional development. I think with our budgetary shortfalls, really what we're focusing on now is being able to help and assist and professionally develop the employees that we do have now. So I think that's one in terms of technology.
Are those employees managers in general? Are those employees like HR people who could help the departments get the recruit and train and do all of the retention? Is that what kind of training is it?
So it's kind of the whole spectrum, right? So our learning management system is basically just a platform via which we have individual dashboards for individual employees. So for instance, if you and I were on the dashboard, you as my supervisor could see what classes I've taken so far and what along certain tracks. For instance, if you said, hey Riker, I'd like you to do a supervisory track, we would have a supervisory course list, and you could see how many of those classes I've taken and what would be next in the series. But that runs the whole gamut for all employees, both for supervisors and managers, as well as for all of our employees. And the course offerings run from something as simple as how do you work Microsoft Word, all the way up to, like I said, our leadership navigator program. So it's a pretty wide-ranging platform and gives us a greater ability to reach more people. Specific to our HR folks, that's the second piece I was going to talk to you about. In terms of being strategic, I think our classification branch is a very good example of that. We have lost a lot of people in our classification branch, and they're running very lean. And additionally, like I mentioned in my earlier testimony, one of our staff there is assisting with our transactions office. And so what classification has done is they've really focused on training the line department, as well as providing online tools for our departmental HR folks so that they have a better ability to do a lot of this work by themselves. So it really is lightening, or I should say spreading the work a little more widely.
So is classification being delegated then? If you're training these people in the line, can they do their own classification and job descriptions and so forth? Or how is that being delegated?
Yeah, so for it primarily is already for positions that are specific to departments. Most of the departments will have and want, in most cases, the delegated ability to do that. The ones that we still do have to hold on to are the ones that are executive branch wide, where we because classification is something that runs not just through the state executive branch, but also through the counties, the university, Department of Education, UA. Some of those we do have to hold on to and are a little more strict about playing around with. But if, for instance, a department's looking at a new class, what the concept is to train them so that they can pretty much come up with the specs themselves, finalize it, and really what you heard with them do is just review it, just to make sure it compares favorably with related classes. It's not going too far outside the bounds of any of our the civil service constraints. But really, it should speed up the process for the departments.
Understand the importance of the consistency and comparability in your classification of positions, but you also look at exempts and you look at a number of our departments have federal monies, and a number of them also are exempt positions or temporary positions because, you know, they're coming in as a grant. And what I've been told is that it takes so long to get a position authorized and then hire that by the time they get the position back to hire, the feds are already saying, hey, you know, we want to report, and they don't have anybody to do the work. So I'm just wondering whether in your assisting the departments, especially those that are heavily federally funded or are looking for other sources of funding, whether there could be more innovative liberalization of being in the civil service, since they aren't, and how you might handle that, and whether you have been handling it.
Yeah, so Senator, I think for those positions that are exempt from civil service, and again, and are delegated to the departments, we really do touch those very little. If those aren't running through us as much, it's more similar to the process that I was just talking about, where the departments are developing those classifications themselves, and then just running to us at the
So they do.
minute.
So that is delegated. Are you saying that can be done at the department level and not be? I'm just looking at ways in which we can streamline the system, get government much more effective, nimble, in areas where at least we're learning and doing new projects, for example. And what is the connection with HRD, or is that something that they come up to you and you say, we've got all these federal programs, we're going to be hiring, and then you sign off, okay, that's temporary, you know, it's not in the civil service? Or how does that work?
I think that's pretty much exactly how the system is working right now.
So that should not minimize, but that should lessen the load of a lot of the work that you have in your department, and that your department should advise and oversee, but not so much have to do the heavy lifting on paperwork and reviews. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Well, okay, that's good to know. Thank you, Chair.
So Riker, what are the new telework policies that the department's planning on developing as a result of COVID? Because it seems like this could become the new norm of trying to work from home. So I know we've asked for that in the past. Now that session is coming up, is there something legislative? If we don't see something from you guys, I know there are some members who are planning to draft legislation. And so I would hate for you guys to react to it versus being ahead of it.
Sure. So, Chair, one of the things that we've provided to the legislature is our short-term guidelines. And so those guidelines, again, were completely in response to the pandemic, which basically allowed for a lot looser ability to grant and use telework for our line department. Currently, that policy is something that was negotiated and consulted upon with each GA specifically, because the unit primarily has employees that can telework. So I think what we've done is, with this telework survey, we've gotten a lot more feedback from the departments in terms of really what the strengths of telework were and what some of the shortfalls for telework were. And I think based on that, we're then going to go back and talk with HGA, and I think possibly with some of the other unions, just based on some of the positions, to see if we can expand the telework guidelines to be a little more flexible. I agree with you 100% that this is likely going to be at least a piece of the new normal. There are a couple things that are tied in with this. One is the IT infrastructure. Generally speaking, ETS has the infrastructure, but we don't necessarily have, at the departmental level, including DHER, the devices that might be necessary to really have a safe and secure telework environment. And so that's one thing that we continue to work with ETS on. And aside from the collective bargaining piece, I think the other piece really that we're going to have to work on with the line departments is really going to be figuring out how do we memorialize this maybe in a more clean fashion for the departments. And I think that's one of the other concerns some of the line departments had with the implementation of telework in this past 9 months.
Well, I'm looking for some kind of timeline. I mean, sooner rather than later.
I agree, sooner rather than later. What I can tell you is because this is something that requires union consultation / negotiation. Where we are at right now is we are in the beginning stages of, and again, I said I wasn't going to talk about this, but we're in the beginning stages of collective bargaining for the master contracts. And so we're going to have to figure out how those two things work together.
Yeah, but despite that, I guess, if it becomes a state law that this is going to be a policy, that's outside of what you're talking about.
That is correct.
So that's where I think we might want to approach it that way, and then we can get feedback through hearings and testimony.
So can we get a copy of that survey of some of the results?
Yeah, I know.
We have, we have it, and we're just we've prepared a presentation. We can do that for you guys, or prepare that for you. What we're trying to do is figure out a way to summarize the results as clearly as possible. But yes, we can definitely provide that to the committees.
Okay, we'll send a memo following up too. Any other questions for DHER?
We're hearing from departments as well of, I think COVID has taught them that in order to serve the public better, they have to be more nimble. They work in teams. They don't go through, this is my job and this is my class or my job description. And they're finding that it's been very effective in some departments. And they would like to see more of that, and in fact, maybe even increase salaries if people are doing more than what they're, just their one little lane. And I'm just wondering whether you have been or have talked with some of these departments. I know we just heard from DBID this morning. They have this innovation initiative office that will look at the way that our employees can probably find more meaning in their jobs if they can consolidate and work in teams, different than the structure that we are stuck with from 50, 60 years ago. And whether there's any thought or any work with the departments to assist them in how they work through that. And also, I think the unions, that's their employees, would be happy to see some way in which you can get their employees elevated. You might have to consolidate some positions for people having a career ladder, for example. But has there been any discussion with some of the departments on that? Because we're really looking at how can government be much more responsive and agile than in the past?
We have, and that's been a longer term project and goal with DHER. We do have projects where, and they are technically still pilots, where groups of employees are tasked with doing things across a class of work as opposed to just a particular position. We haven't received that request directly from any of the departments. I will reach out to DBED after this, but if there are other departments, I I would be happy for you to share those with me, and I can reach out to the directors.
So what
It is
what
something-
department has done it? You said you work with one department or a department that has done it? What department is that?
There are actually three. So one is DHS, HPHA, one is DOT, and one is the Department of Defense.
Working in teams, and what, does that require a reclassification, or does that require, what does that require? Or is that,
Well, right.
Okay,
well,
under-
actually- I'm sorry, Senator, go ahead.
yeah, so I was just saying, does that require any structural kinds of changes, or is that something that departments can do to be more effective without running afoul of some process or procedure that we might have to look at changing?
Right now, what the process requires is consultation / negotiation with the union. And that's really where
Yeah,
those.
but we don't want to
projects-
get
No.
involved in that. That's why it has to be, if we want to do a statewide policy,
That good involved?
legislatively, you just have to come up with something. If not, it's either you're going to go that route or you're going to go the route he's talking about.
Or rather just make a law
So
and
it's-
and pilot, at least pilot and sunset it.
Okay, any other
Okay,
questions for
thank you.
Deher?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So do you want me to just
Yeah,
start?
go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon and Happy New Year.
Same to
Honorable
you.
Chair.
Happy New Year.
We know how busy you are.
Honorable Chairs De La Cruz and Taniguchi, and Vice Chairs Keith Agaran and Ihara, and members of the committees. Thank you for having me here today. I know you all are very busy as well. And so I just want to give a brief summary of what our mission statement is at the Department of Labor, what our budget is going to start to look like with the imminent cuts to the departments, and what work we still have to do within our department. Would you like me to go over and introduce our
Okay.
directors and executive directors? Okay, I would like to do that if that's okay with you. We are a pretty big department. We have 7 divisions and 6 attached agencies. And I want to start with our Workforce Development Division, Maricar Piloton Freitas.
Happy New Year. I'm Maricar Piloton Freitas.
Our Workforce Development Council Executive Director, Allison Tasaka.
Aloha. Happy New Year, everyone.
Our Occupational Safety and Health, Environmental Health Specialist sitting in for Norman Ahu, Nicole Bennett. Sorry, no
Oh, there.
Nicole.
Yeah.
Wage Standards Division Administrator, Cheryl Lee.
Hi everyone, Happy New Year. I'm Cheryl Lee with the Wage Standards Division.
Hawaii Civil Rights Commission Executive Director, William Hoshijo.
Aloha and good afternoon. Will Hoshijo for the HCRC.
Hawaii Labor Relations Board Chair, Marcus Oshiro.
Hello, Happy New Year. Good to be here.
Unemployment Insurance Division Acting Administrator, Arthur Barba. And he may not be on today. He is a very busy man right now.
Yeah, I imagine.
Disability Compensation Division Acting Administrator, Writing Koito.
Happy New Year, everyone. Royden Koito, Acting Administrator, DCD.
Labor and
Happy New Year.
Industrial Relations Board Chair, Damian Elefante.
Good afternoon, everyone, chairs and members of the committee, each committee. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Employment Security Appeals for the Unemployment Insurance Division, Appeals Officer Pam Toguchi. Guess Pam's not there either. Research and Statistics Office, Acting Administrator Jerry Sato.
Hi.
Hi.
Must be Pam.
There's not though.
Office of Community Services Executive Director Giovanni De La Cruz.
Aloha, Chairs Dela Cruz and Chair Taniguchi and members of the committee. Giovanni Dela Cruz, OCS.
Administrative Services Office Administrator, Leila Shar.
Hello, Happy New Year. My name is Leila Shar.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Administrative Services Office Accountant for Francis Kagawa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Francis Kagawa, accountant.
And of course, last but not least, our Deputy Director is Joanne Vidinhar.
Aloha. Happy New Year, Senators. We're grateful to be here with you today. Thank you for having us.
Happy New
Aloha.
Year.
Aloha.
Okay, so just a brief update on our vision and mission of the department. And just to let you know that we have a total of 742 appropriated positions in the Department of Labor. 80% of our funding is either federal, special, or revolving funds. And 20% is general funds. And so I'd like to go through what our mission is. The mission of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations is to administer programs designed to increase the economic security, fiscal and economic well-being, and productivity of workers, and to achieve good labor management relations, including the administration of worker compensation, employment security, apprenticeship training, wage and hour, and industrial relations laws. The department shall also have the function of developing, preparing, and disseminating information on employment, unemployment, and general labor market conditions. You have our testimony in front of you, but I'd like to just go over some of the key items on our budget and our asks. So we have one ask for the next 2 years, and that ask is to help fund the maintenance and ongoing activities for the division for the modernization project of the DCD division. And this will help us to move forward, continue that modernization project, and continue to meet the expectations of our community. That is our only ask. Our cuts within Department of Labor, that was hard. We were asked by the governor to come up with 10, 15, and 20% cuts. We have come up with those figures, and we've been tasked with our 20% cut on a department that has only 20% of general funds. You hit a few instead of the many. So it's been very hard to determine what our major core functions are and what we need to cut in the Department of Labor. As a director, I feel that every single function that we do in labor is important, and that every function is to help the community and those we serve. And so it was very hard coming up with a determination on what we were going to cut, but we did. And I want to go over that with you. So we are cutting areas in the Department of Labor, and the first area is the Workforce Development Division. We plan to cut $805,000 from the Workforce Advisory Board grants. These grants subsidize agriculture, healthcare, and technology grants. If they affect our secondary education delivery aspect area. Now with the pandemic, we've seen that participation in these programs have been extremely low. We believe it's because majority of the functions that they are now addressing are through virtual and mixed virtual learning, and that has greatly impacted that area of funding. The second area that we are looking at cutting is the Workforce Development Council. The Workforce Development Council is going to be reduced by funds of $300,000. These funds are for adults, dislocated workers, and youth that do not qualify for federal assistance after skills training. A third area of cuts is for our Hawaii Civil Rights Commission. The Hawaii Civil Rights Commission will be cut by a total of 7 positions. One of those positions is a vacancy that had already been cut through the budget cuts earlier on. 6 of those positions are current positions that we will be cutting, which totals $315,000. Of course, there will be an impact to services within that area with a cut of 7 positions. The next area is our Research and Statistics Office. There is an area within Research and Statistics that falls under the Career Kokua program. This reduction terminates the delivery of career and training information used for job placement services. So it's to help those who need information on how to look at different careers and what paths to take in the future. That area would lose 2 positions of $139,000. The last area of cuts was a hard one. They are being impacted the greatest. And this area is the Office of Community Services. We do know that this division provides a much needed service to our public and our community. We know that it is these grants to these nonprofit organizations that helps those who are disadvantaged to continue to survive within our state and our community. But as we looked at our divisions, it looked like this division was one of the least that met our vision and mission and goal of the department, and also to meet our regulated statutes, both state and federally regulated. In this area, we would be cutting 5 positions. Those 5 positions is a little over $1 million. And that's what our asks are this year with our funding. If you have any questions, I'd be very pleased to answer them.
Members, questions? Senator Taniguchi.
And
Yeah.
how many are warm bodies?
So we have several warm bodies in our cuts. So in Career Kokua, we have 2 warm bodies. So when we looked at cutting these positions, we definitely looked at ways to make sure that those who had warm bodies could be placed or applied for other positions within the area. So within Research and Statistics of those 2 warm bodies, we have other positions that are available to be hired. They are 50-50 federal state positions. If we could get approval to move them or they could apply for those positions, we'd like to save those bodies. Also, in the OCS division, we have a couple of bodies there. One is close to retirement and has stated that might be, the path that they would take. And the other, there's other opportunities within labor right now, and that's why we need to do this as quickly as possible. Unemployment insurance, for instance. We have positions that we would like to fill. Those who already have experience or knowledge in the background of labor would have some technical skills that we could definitely use within our department. Also, in the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission, there are 3 positions that have live bodies. 2 of those positions are the investigator positions that are much harder to place an individual in because they're higher level positions. A 3rd position is an individual who also has expressed some interest in retiring soon or by the end of the year of this year. So we have made sure that we did our due diligence in those who actively serve in our department and are diligent and hard workers to make sure that they are taken care of.
For these,
So I added up 11.
Yes, so a lot of the other ones are vacant positions that we haven't filled, and we just won't fill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
so I thank you, Ed. I know these are real difficult decisions, but in terms of the functioning of the department, in all of these areas where you have made cuts, are there remaining positions able to do the work that's supposed to be done by that division, by that office, that can serve the public, continue to serve the public?
Right. Well, in our Office of Community Services, like I stated yesterday, it depends, that area is being cut drastically. And in order for us to continue to receive federal grants and administer those grants, that might be an issue. on whether we have the capacity to do that. Whereas in other areas, we could cover those. For instance, career kokua. There are other areas within Department of Labor where we could funnel some training monies and make sure that there are opportunities for career advancement for those in the community who are looking for that. And the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission, they still do have investigators. Of course, it's a big cut to that area, but there are individuals who still are performing that function.
So in terms of, for example, career kokua, I mentioned that because way back when, it was under the DOE, and then they didn't feel that they were servicing the people, and they want to move to labor. But is there still a connection with DOE that there still is a need for that, or is that just a program that's going to just be cut and people are going to be dispersed elsewhere in the department?
I don't know if DOE has the capacity, to take on any additional functions. I do know that they do still work with them through these programs, so that they may be of interest to continue those programs.
Because we're looking at the transitioning of students, whether in high school or going to college or going to vocational training or into jobs.
Correct.
As being critical, especially if you're looking at the public schools and how we get our kids to stay home and get into jobs. So I'm just wondering what the connectors are, that the program itself might be a good one, but where it's placed and how it's funded may be something to look at.
Right.
Federal
and
funds.
we can look at that if this does, start to happen, and we know that this is an area that we will lose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Senator Noy.
Yeah, two things.
Yes.
Your neighbor island services are not going to be affected, right, by any reductions of services?
Yes.
Okay, that's so important. And at this time, I have to actually thank all of you folks and the staff for assisting, all those that needed the unemployment insurance and couldn't get the coverages. I mean, it took months and months, but a lot of the burden were put on to us as well. And so, we kind of apologize for bugging you guys, but we had to assist our constituents.
Thank you. Actually, we apologize for you having to take on that burden. It is our function, it is our job, and we hope that we can do better at that in the future with more modernization.
Another thing too is going back to the neighbor island representatives as well, is because I'm just wondering if there's a need to add to the staffing for the neighbor islands. But this pandemic has just given us a lot more things that the unintended consequences we didn't know was going to occur, that the burden was put on them as well.
Right.
But they struggled.
Yes, they struggled.
Okay. The next one was a question and a concern raised by the business communities about the SUTA taxes. So is the department looking at increasing and making the changes to the schedule then, from Schedule C to H?
So that is a major concern right now.
But it's going to be then the highest ever.
Correct. That is a major concern right now with the business community. The employers are now having to foot the bill for the benefits that were paid out. And so you're correct. Schedule H is the schedule that's statutorily in effect for 2021.
Wow.
We are working with the governor and putting a bill in the governor's package to try and mitigate the impact on employers, bring down that rate to a, manageable level, to still be able to hopefully build the solvency of that trust fund, as well as obtain funds to pay back this loan that we still have. So the loan right now is at $691 million. We've paid back some of the loan already with some CARES Act funding, as well as every evening we sweep our UI trust fund and pay back whatever contributions we have in the fund, so that we can continue to bring down that amount, so that interest is something that we know we're going to have to pay in 2 years, and we want to try and also mitigate the impact of the interest.
So, you know, when it was lowered by Act 2, was it in 2010 or 2008?
So when it was lowered,
Yeah.
that made a big difference.
What was the impact at that time?
It impacted the trust fund. So not only was the tax schedule lowered artificially, but what happened was the solvency of the trust fund was brought down to 1 times what you need in a 10-year period to be solvent. And it used to be 1.5 times. And so I can tell you that other states who had not brought their solvency rate down below 1% or at 1 weathered this storm better than we did. And so I think if we were at a solvency of either 1.5 or 2 times the amount, we would have been better off.
Wow. And that's going to come to Chair Taniguchi's committee, I guess, when he has to deal with the bills. Okay. Yeah. So,
I'll take that.
so the difference between the C and the H was the highest. So is there an in between? Is there a D, E, F?
There are 8.
So why are you going to H?
So there are 8 tax schedules.
Yes.
And there is a statutory formula that's set so that we come back to solvency. That statutory formula has been put into place, and that's why it's H.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So we're at C now.
We in 2020, we were at C. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to follow up on some things I think that you reported to the House.
Okay.
You said that the state currently owes 59 million of unemployment insurance loans.
So we
To cover interest.
interest, sorry.
Yeah.
We will. That's just an estimate, Chair. That's an estimate of what we will owe when it becomes due in 2022. So interest doesn't become due until 2022 if we do not pay the loan in full. So the way that works is after you pass 2 January 1st, so our first January 1st is 2021, and our second January 1st is 2022.
Okay, so what I'm trying to reconcile is how is that in the governor's financial plan?
So the
Because I
governor,
don't remember seeing it.
the governor put out a press release, I believe, and in December, at the end of December, and he stated that he was going to put money aside to cover the interest
Okay,
on the
so
loan
whose budget is that
in the governor's budget. So it's not out of Department of Labor.
Oh, we can see.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing it.
Because that's not what I don't recall the chief of staff highlighting that.
Yeah,
Do you?
she did it.
Okay.
Yeah, because interest, Chair, cannot be paid through contributions. It's a federal statute.
So we gotta use general funds.
General funds, or you can collect a surcharge on employers. That's what some of the states do. Sometimes they use that E&T fund to do that, to pay the interest. But it cannot come from the actual contributions for the solvency of the trust fund.
Okay, so there was some payment made because of some of the CARES money that got moved over to UI.
That's correct.
So that was about what?
That was close to 40 million.
So the balance remains.
So we also paid off every night we sweep our account. So any contribution made by employers gets swept and paid to the loan as well. So right now we have no balance in our trust fund. It is insolvent. It's at 0. So right now we have a loan of a little over $691 million.
Okay. And we're continuing to borrow.
We are continuing to borrow, correct.
So do you have a projection of, based on what the economists said, they feel at least within the next 6 months, we're probably going to be on this track?
Yes.
And then by then it's going to shrink. So based on what the economists are saying, do you kind of have some projections as to how much more we need to borrow and when that amount's going to start to shrink?
Yes, we have charts and measures that I could send you to show you what that looks like. We do have some estimates. Now, they're just estimates because we don't know, right? well, what's going to happen if these vaccines work and people start going back to work? It may turn things around.
Okay, so for now, the 691 million has to be paid back by 2022. Everything else has a later payment.
Everything. Your
Everything.
full loan.
So the next 6 months that we continue to borrow, everything is due.
Right. Now, if we don't pay back the loan in full, employers in the state of Hawaii can lose their federal tax credit. And so they start losing that federal tax credit in 2022.
Okay. Because if you have those numbers, then really they should somehow be reflected in the budget because it's a
Correct.
2-year biennium.
Correct. We are working with Budget and Finance to provide, they have those numbers and they're looking at how we're going to cover it. Normally, loans are covered by employer contributions. So when they lose the federal tax credit, that is a forced payment of the loan. So they will tax employers on an incremented schedule starting from 2022. They'll lose 0.3% of their 6% federal tax credit on an incremental basis year after year. And that money that's collected by the federal government will then be used to pay back the loan. So it's a forced payment of the loan.
Okay.
So-
We
Yeah.
might have to call back the budget director, I think, to explain to us where he has all these these payments in the budget.
Potential.
Because it sounds like everything needs to be paid back within the biennium.
Right. And if not, then the employers will lose their federal tax credit and we will have to pay interest on the loans.
Okay, so what about the, there was some talk of bonding
Correct.
to pay.
Correct. There has been talk of bonding with Budget and Finance. No decision has been made yet on moving down that path. They have met with several vendors on what the challenges of bonding may be and how it will impact our employers here in the state.
Well, in the state budget.
Yes, and the state budget.
So Chair, is there any other agencies that are in the same boat of,
No, they have this biggest
you
loan.
got the biggest one?
Yes.
Well, and then the municipal loan, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That has a.
That has a due payment.
So he included it
2022.
in the first year of other revenues.
Yeah.
It was the money there, plus he had some other monies in there. You had a question?
Yes, what is that, if, I remember we were talking, in the conversation on the side, so what is, that we could be asking our delegates to.
Yeah, our wish list, right? Yeah,
Can you share that?
Yes, so we did have a wish list that we sent up to Congress before they passed this new stimulus package. One of the main items on the wish list was to forego the loans to states, since many states have been impacted by this pandemic. And I know that 691 million is a lot of money, but some of the other states have borrowed billions. And so we've been all greatly impacted. And so we've asked Congress to look at trying to do something to either forgo the loans, forgo interest completely, waive all the interest. They didn't do any of that except to just, they pushed back the interest due for a little bit. But that was it. And so they're still saying that those loans still need to be repaid. I'm hoping, you never know what might happen in the future if they come out with another bill. That might be something that they might entertain.
But
and
if
that
they
would,
don't, we have to be prepared.
yes, we have to be prepared. Correct.
Well, let's hope our new administration will assist the states.
2 new senators.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Are you
Thank you, Senator,
expecting,
for that.
are you expecting any new, with the new increments that's coming to the states? Are you looking, I mean, do we know if you're going to get anything?
Our programs changed, and so we do have new provisions for all of our programs, for PUA, for PEUC.
You're going to have any more funding though?
Yes,
under this-
and for
Oh,
FPA,
okay.
correct.
So you will have something then?
Correct, yes.
You don't know how much?
We do. We know that they don't give us a dollar amount, Senator. They just tell us what these programs entail.
I see.
So FPOC will be an additional $300 a week for 11 additional weeks, as well as PEUC will be 11 additional weeks at your weekly benefit amount. And they are also extending PUA for 11 additional weeks.
That's good news in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody on Zoom have a question? Members?
I have one more to follow. So, Annie, following up on that, and these are all new programs, and you only asked for DCD and your computer upgrade into the cloud, but are you all set with your UI computer technology in the cloud so that when these new programs come down, that you're able to handle it? Is that
That's a
all
great
done?
question, Senator. This mainframe is extremely fragile. And I can tell you these new programs have many new provisions that need to be programmed. We cannot program them to the level we would like to get them programmed. So many of the functions will need to be done manually because this current mainframe cannot handle the load.
So there's nothing that ETS can do to help you upgrade that
Actually,
now?
ETS has helped us greatly. We are in constant communication with ETS. Their programmers are the ones who are actually programming all of these new programs for us. We have touched these programs in the last 9 months more than we've ever touched these programs in 10 or 20 years. It is extremely fragile. I mean, I don't know how much more to stress that we don't want to crash the mainframe completely. We want to be able to continue to pay benefits to those that are due benefits. So we need to balance that. But I can tell you that we are moving down the modernization path. We have started. And so we received money from the legislators 2 years ago. We received $2 million. Just last year, we received $1 million in general funds as well, and then $10 million in CIP funds. And so we are using that money. We are talking with a contractor. We hopefully have a contract, and we'll have it in place once we meet with the PAC committee to get approved for this modernized project. But it's with a company that is using the same application that we talked about when we were talking to you about the Idaho system. And so we don't have to do another gap. We can use the same gap that we did a couple of years ago. It was a 80-20 gap, and those are great odds. And so we're moving down that path. We want to be able to provide the level of service to our claimants that they're due. This mainframe, I can tell you, cannot do that. I hate to say that, but it cannot. And so we're already moving down the path to modernize so that we can provide them the level of service that they're due.
So when is the time frame when this will be?
So if we can get approved by the PAC and get this project going, they said it should take us about 18 months. But this is a huge lift. You have to remember, this mainframe application is from the 80s. And it has data in there back to the 80s of all claims ever filed within our state. And so it's a huge lift. The data conversion alone will take several months.
Wow. So what are you doing in the meantime with this new monies coming in? Is that going to be a long wait for the claimants?
It will be a wait.
Like how long?
So I know that we can get that $300 FPUC up pretty quickly. We're thinking within the next week or so, that should be up and running. That's one of the easier applications because they didn't change the provisions much. All they really changed is the date and the amount.
So
Instead of
to flow
600,
through the
it's
same
300.
system.
So we're going to use pretty much the same programming except change the dates and the amounts. It's PUC and PUA that they've changed drastically. So there's lots of new regulations they put on PUA. So prior to this new bill, it was just a self-certification, correct? So you didn't have to prove to us that you were self-employed. You just had to certify you were. You didn't have to prove to us what your income was unless you wanted a higher weekly benefit amount. There's new regulations that says we have to now obtain from claimants proof that they are self-employed. Can you imagine? over 90,000 claimants in PUA that we have to go and have them prove their self-employment and get their income verification. That's a lot of work. Even if we had an automated system, that would be a lot of work.
Oh. So you have the staffing to do that? So, I mean, I'm just looking at the people that we've already helped.
Right.
And they have to go through this whole system again.
Yes.
They have to reapply again.
Yeah.
I'm sure the committee chair is going to have many hearings on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no further questions, we're going to adjourn.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.